Do you think it would have been a unilateral action, or it was?
Sorry, I can't hear you.
It was an action on its own, or it was something which was the government of India at that time ensured that it happened. Obviously, the government
of
India ensured that it happened.
There was no question on its own. It would never happen like that. Some of them couldn't exist independently.
So, we have understood your argument on that. Can we move on?
Now, let's look at PDF 379, because all those proclamations are different from the proclamation Kwe Jammu Kashmir, which is 25th November 1950, before the 26th January 1949.
The proclamations is the firman of the Nizam as well. The Nizam you find at page 377,
yeah, but the
23rd of November,
but
1949. This was certainly not voluntary.
Of course not. Of course not, Malaj. I agree. This is what I responded to my lord. But Malaj, the language is different from Jammu and Kashmir.
So keeping you probably in J&K, keeping at that time the political environment, it was something different.
That's all that I'm saying.
That's my argument. We have understood that argument.
Yes, and therefore it was incorporated in these terms in the Constitution, which was not done by anybody else, which only shows to you that merger was never contemplated except in terms of 370. All the others became merged through these proclamations, part of these states, and then became part of B states. All these states became part of B states. Jammu Kashmir Mullahs were not. It was the only state excluded from Part B states.
But equally, the proclamation which Yuvraj executed, which you find at page 379,
yes,
which we have seen earlier,
yes,
says that the entire relationship between Jammu and Kashmir and the Union of India will now be governed by the Constitution of India.
Correct.
And all previous understandings
are gone.
Are all superseded.
Absolutely. And see what the language is. The Constitution of India shortly to be adopted shall be insofar as it applicable to the state of Jammu and Kashmir, govern the constitutional relationship. So you go back to that. That is 1 and 370 only, Malak. Nothing more than that. I just wanted to show your lordships, Malak, because your lordships put me this question. I think it was a very significant Malak's query. And they all followed a uniform pattern of integration, other than Jammu Kashmir. And Malak, the white paper also says that the integration of states did not follow a uniform pattern in all cases. You will find that, Malak, at page PDF 46.
Because you have to deal with them differently.
Naturally.
I have understood that argument. Today the issue is not this. Today the issue is whether 370 was really a temporary thing and whether in terms of 370 it could have.
I'm giving the historical background to show the difference and why he did not merge, because in the meantime many things had happened, including the matter going to the UN. This all happened prior to this, Malak. Therefore the question of merger didn't arise. That's the point, Malak.
Sibal, that has all been argued in your opening arguments.
No, I'm only giving the background to 370, Malak. I'm not arguing it. My lord put it to me. I'm just giving the background, nothing more. I'm not arguing. I've argued 370, Malak. I'm not arguing, Malak.
Historical background also you are given in your opening argument.
No, not the merger, because my lord put me the merger agreements. There's a difference between merger agreements in all other states at that time, that is the 552 states, and except for Jammu and Kashmir. That's all, brother. And they have argued merger. I did not argue. Anyway, be that as it may, Malaj. Malaj, if just one other thing, Malaj. Since we are at this, Malaj, your lordships put to me yesterday, and then I'll come back to Malaj, the 355. Your lordships put to me that, look, there is a silence here in the Constitution. Malaj, I just want to answer that. And I'll Malaj, read what I have to say on this, Malaj, so that it's on the record. My first statement is integration was completed when the Constituent Assembly of Jammu and Kashmir completed its task and the Constitution of Jammu and Kashmir was adopted on 26th of January 1957. The governing structure comprising the Constitution of India and the Constitution of Jammu Kashmir complement each other, and through the bridge of Article 370. The scheme operated without conflict for 70 years. This very scheme. There was never a conflict. 2. Through this complementary structure, the vast majority of provisions of the Constitution of India are applicable to Jammu and Kashmir in one way or the other. This was the integration meant. Nothing further needs to be integrated. Indian constitutionalism is not bound by a single scheme of legislative relations or any homogeneous understanding of the concept of integration. 3. Article 370, sub-article 3 is not silent. What is my answer to that? It is not silent as to the consequences reflecting the relationship between Jammu and Kashmir and India after the Constitution of Jammu and Kashmir was framed and the Constituent Assembly completed its constitutional task. This is further buttressed by the fact that in 1954, by CO 48, a proviso was added to 368(2). That can't mean that the 370 was silent on the consequences. If it was silent, 368(2) proviso would never have been added. Ensure that Article 370 could not be amended, even through the exercise of constituent power, and that by virtue of CO 48, the boundaries of the state of Jammu Kashmir could also not be altered, as long as 370 was in place. The Article 368 does not apply to 370 is clear from the fact that 370 starts with a non-obstante clause. So it was not silent as to the consequences. Next, there were no silences left to fill except the silence of the people of Jammu and Kashmir, who were never consulted and taken into confidence when issuing CO 272 and 273. That's the only silence that prevailed. Bilateralism is at the heart of the mechanism provided by Article 370, in terms of which laws applicable in the Union of India through the Constitution of India as applicable to Jammu and Kashmir are to be applied. It is this bilateral process which allows for a process of integration that is constitutionally envisaged in Article 370 of the Constitution, and any adjustment of the relations between Jammu and Kashmir and the Union must follow this bilateral process. And last of all, even with respect to 368 of the Constitution, the process of exercise of constituent power resulting in amendment of the Constitution is also given effect through a bilateral process. Bilateralism is at the heart of the said process because you have to consult at least get agreements of at least half the members of the states. That too is a bilateral process. Nothing can happen outside there can't be a unilateral act of an executive, not even parliament. Consider this, Malas, what we're talking about, a unilateral act of the president acting on the aid and advice of Council of Ministers, not parliament. So, Malas, with respect, I say there is no silence. So that was, Malas, just our submission, Malas, on that issue.